I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Actually, I will be the one taking you on a journey. This video will be addressing the disorder called Transvestic Fetishism, and to help me out, I've asked Dr. Frankenfurter to
Master, we have a visitor.
I suppose that's him now.
I'm just a sweet transvestite.
Okay, Frank, I think that's quite enough. Alright, now let's get down to the facts. According to the DSM-4-TR, someone with transvestic fetishism must have reoccurring intense urges to dress in the clothing of the opposite gender. These urges must persist for a period of at least 6 months. The sexual fantasies, urges, or behaviors must cause clinically significant distress to the individual or impairment of any roles they play in society. This disorder is a little difficult to pinpoint because it isn't that the individual is simply cross-dressing, it's that they must be sexually aroused by the cross-dressing behavior. So, if it's so easy to mistake it for non-disorder behaviors, how common is the disorder itself? Well, lifetime prevalence of transvestic fetishism is about 2.8% in men. Notice I did say men. Does this mean that women don't have it at all? Well, it depends on who you ask. The DSM-4-TR has added a criterion that you have to be a heterosexual male in order to have this disorder. However, a survey in Sweden found that 0.4% of their female sample has had an episode of transvestic fetishism in their lifetime. This, however, does not meet the criteria for the DSM in that it has only been a single episode. So, Frank, you boys may not be the only one. The onset of this disorder begins prior to or during puberty for most individuals. For those that begin showing signs before puberty, the act of cross-dressing may seem pleasurable in ways other than sexual. This could mean that the child likes the physical sensations of the clothing, like the texture or the smell, and associates that with feelings of familiarity and comfort. Based on those feelings, wearing the clothing may even become a coping aid during stressful times. Also, opposite gender role-playing is a common sign, especially when the child initiates the play instead of being coerced by a sibling or another family member. Once puberty hits, the behavior of cross-dressing becomes increasingly associated with sexual arousal and orgasm. These new associations may also increase the likelihood of the child fantasizing about cross-dressing, whether it's in their own home or in a public place. As opposed to the relatively private behavior of children, young adults may increase the frequency of actual transvestic behavior in public. When entering a sexual relationship, however, these behaviors may stop altogether. Unfortunately, they will not stay gone long and will probably return later in life. Upon reaching adulthood or late adulthood, the sexual aspect of cross-dressing may weaken. This may be caused in part by the overall decrease in sex drive, and if the behavior does not completely disappear, it may go back to a more comfort function as it is with the children. So I'm sure you're all wondering, what causes transvestic fetishism? What do you think, Frank?
I see you shiver with anticipation.
There's not much conclusive evidence to suggest that transvestic fetishism has a biological origin. It does, however, have a high comorbidity rate with mood disorders such as anxiety disorder or other distressing sexual behaviors. So far, research on the heredity of fetishisms has only brought forth meager results that are not clinically significant. Psychological origins have been based in theories concerning operant and classical conditioning. Some hypothesize that cross-dressing behavior begins to develop after accidental contact with overtly feminine clothing or accidentally viewing a woman undress at a very young age. The conditioning comes into play when this contact becomes reinforced with psychologically comforting properties or sexual arousal. In fact, continual pairing of feminine clothing and intense sexual stimulation such as masturbation can be one of the most powerful contributors to transvestic fetishism in the process of human development. Social theories are also limited in conclusive information. The only support for a social factor is that people with transvestic fetishism have a higher rate of parental separation during childhood. It is possible that this separation increased the likelihood for the child to rely on feminine clothing, perhaps his mother's, for comfort. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory suggests that all sexual fetishes are a direct result of what he called castration anxiety. In the case of transvestic fetishism, he believed that the man feels inadequate as a male and requires female clothing in order to feel sexually complete. Whatever floats your boat, Freud. Alright, now that we know the theories of its origin, how do psychologists treat this disorder? In order to decrease the unwanted sexual arousal, many psychologists turn to a cognitive behavioral therapy called covert sensitization. This type of therapy asks the client to imagine the worst possible scenario in the case that he cross-dresses. The therapy is designed to help the client associate their problem behavior with negative results as opposed to positive ones. A second treatment, less abrupt than the first, is called orgasmic reconditioning. This allows the client to masturbate to a scenario that he normally would, but then focus on an acceptable fantasy just prior to ejaculation. Practice with this type of therapy helps an individual to wean himself from an inappropriate fantasy and focus on more appropriate ones. Lastly, although they're not normally needed for nonviolent sexual disorders, medication can be prescribed to those with transvestic fetishism. Cyproterone acetate works as an anti-androgen, which decreases the amount of testosterone in the body and therefore decreases the fantasy. Unfortunately, as with most drugs, sexual arousal returns quickly after discontinuing the medication. Those with transvestic fetishism are probably better off with the therapeutic methods. Luckily, success rate for those who do seek treatment is about 78.6%. These statistics are significantly high, so there is no doubt plenty of help for those who need it. Well, that about does it for this video. I hope it's been enjoyable and informative. Say bye, Frank. We're going home.
I'm going